everybody, Charis here. I'm in Portland, Oregon, visiting some friends, and this is Angel. They're super sweet dogs. She's aptly named too. It's one of the sweetest dogs I've ever met. Anyway, what I want to talk to you about in today's video is life purpose, the purpose of life, the purpose of existence, both on a macro level, like human existence, and on a micro level. And before I really get into what I think it is, I want to tell you about my experience with it. And when I was a teenager, started when I was about 12 or 13 or so, I started really thinking about the purpose of life. And the life that I lived did not make any particular sense to me as far as a greater purpose went. So I just wondered about it a lot, and I wondered about why people did the things they did, and I wondered about why bad things happened. And then I went through a period of being agnostic / atheist, more atheist than a true agnostic is. And I came to the conclusion that if we live in a world where some people can be rich and play tennis their entire lives long, and some people can die from horrible diseases before the age of 2, along with starvation, just all types of nasty experience-ness, then there couldn't be a God. And if there was a God, then I didn't want to have anything to do with that dude because he was a sadist and liked watching us suffer while he popped popcorn or whatever else. And so that was my argument. And whenever I would talk to people about it who were religious, my friends, they would eventually come around to, well, you just got to have faith. And that was always where the conversation stopped, because I would come to the conclusion that, all right, well, you're being an idiot and you're not using your brain anymore. Although I love you, whoever this person is I'm talking to, I can't have this discussion with you from this point forward. So it would end. And then my awakening really started when I was 20. But when I was about 18, I was driving home one day, looking out the stars in the middle of the night on a back road in Virginia, which I would always do. I'd always look up at the stars and look forward on this long stretch of road. And there was a presence there. A huge, all-knowing, all-powerful presence that you could just feel. Well, I could just feel the immensity of it. And pretty much what it said to me non-verbally was what I found out years later was the I am statement. Essentially, I'm here, I exist, hello. And me acting very quickly in the moment, because I was an impetuous teenager, said, this is when I was about, like I said, 17 or 18, I said, fine, well, if you're there, then how come A, B, C, D, and E, F? Because it was after I'd had one of these conversations driving home. And the answer was something along the lines of, just because you can't see the full picture does not mean that a full picture that makes sense doesn't exist. And when someone told me this very clearly in the moment, someone that I couldn't deny was gigantic, it kind of threw me for a loop. I didn't have any reply that made sense because, well, okay, how can you argue with something like that? So when thinking about the purpose of life, now I think that I know what it is on a bigger scale. Here, Lo, come up and say hi. She's being a wild cat right now. And we'll see how long she stays with me. Might not be at all. And no, it wasn't. So you got a glimpse. That's probably all that's going to happen. So when I think about the big purpose of life, from what I've seen and experienced, from what I've seen and experienced in other people's lives too, it seems to be that the big purpose of human life on Earth in this general age of time is to learn, to experience, and to create consciously. Because we've always been learning, experiencing, and creating. We've always been creator beings as long as we've been human. But this wasn't necessarily done consciously. The bells are courtesy of Angel. It wasn't done consciously. We didn't know we were here to learn. We didn't know we were here to experience. We didn't know we were here to create. And that argument that I had about children dying of disease and starvation versus people being rich, and although that doesn't mean happy, in fact often it means the opposite, but from my perspective it did at that time. It doesn't really count if you have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of lifetimes. Of course you would have one that you'd have a crappy experience. And you'd have some that you had great experiences, and you would run the gamut of all of it. The really great stuff, the really terrible stuff. I don't know if you guys saw the video I just did with Gigi Young, but we were talking about the duality of experience. And sure, a lot of you guys watching this have been persecuted in other lifetimes, and likely in this one too. So I know that I, for instance, have been burned at the stake more than once, probably more than twice, probably more than 5 times. I've been tortured in a bunch of different ways, some of which I consciously remember, some of which only kind of brushes on my awareness. But I have also been torturer. I know I have. And I'll say that openly because I ain't doing that in this lifetime. And I am perfectly fine with saying that, yeah, I experienced that. I experienced all the things that went into what will make someone torture other people, and I experienced torturing other people. And whether or not that was tying karmic connections to then be unraveled in other lifetimes, or whether or not it was unraveling ones that were already tied, that I don't know. I haven't particularly looked into it, because being a torturer is not something that I particularly want to experience in this lifetime, and I know that I have the option. So, when it comes back to learn, experience, and create, and I do think that we're coming toward a more conscious knowledge of us as universes. If every atom in your body is a solar system, and on that solar system there may exist life, then you are quite literally a universe. I also think it's important to know what your purpose is. So yeah, the purpose is to learn, experience, and create. But your life purpose is what to really find. And even though it will go under the heading of learn, experience, and create, yours will be different than your neighbors, will be different than your cousins, will be different than your lovers, will be different than your child's. And how to find your own purpose has to do with the internal barometer you feel. When do you feel inspired, happy, you lose time, things just kind of flow for you around. When you need something, it just kind of shows up. When you need to meet a certain person, they just appear. Things happen as a result of you getting interesting feelings like you should do this or that, or go to this and that place, and then all of a sudden you get exactly what you needed. That is when you are living your purpose. When you're not living your purpose, or when you're transitioning into living your purpose, and I'll come back to that in a second because it's a really big thing right now, then you have experiences where you feel stuck emotionally. You feel sad, depressed, stagnant. When I was working a job that I didn't want to do back before I was able to do this work full time, I would have many panic attacks every day before going to work, while going to work. And it was a cushy job. I was an administrative assistant at a university. My bosses loved me. I loved my bosses. I worked with nice people. It was a generally easy job, and my bosses thought I did really great. And I would have many panic attacks commonly when I was going to work. I made good money. Everything seemed to be fine, but I could not stand it. It was something going on that I just knew it was wrong for me. Some of you guys probably know exactly what I'm talking about as I'm telling you this. And so what do you do? What do you do if you're not living your purpose? What do you do if you're living your purpose a little bit and you want to be living it more? Well, first of all, you understand it and come to the point that you know consciously that perhaps I should shift something. And then you relinquish control to the organizing intelligence, or source, or God, or the all, or whatever it is you call it. So if you don't know what to do, but you know that you're not doing the thing you should be doing, or you would like to do more of the thing you should be doing, start setting intentions, addressing the organizing consciousness, because we live in a fractal universe. If you're conscious, then that would mean that that is conscious. I can adjust things the way that you can adjust things inside your body. If your finger itches, another finger comes and scratches it. You might be this finger. Someone else that gives you exactly the information they need might be that finger. And if you talk to the organizing consciousness, it will tell that one to scratch you. Hopefully not to scratch you. Hopefully do something else. So, make the intention that the information come to you, that the shifts come to you, that the changes come to you. A lot of you have already made this intention, and if you guys are experiencing what I'm experiencing, you may be undergoing a complete breakdown of the structures of your life. I've known that a change was coming for a while, and right now, in this spot where I'm recording this video and talking to you right now, pretty much all of the scaffolding of my life has completely fallen apart. I literally have absolutely no idea where I'll be or what I'll be doing in a month from now, other than the work that I do, which I can really do from anywhere. So, on one hand, that can be terrifying, right? Because if my left brain tries to come in and figure out what's going on, it doesn't have the information and it can't, so it kind of spazzes and freaks. But on the other hand, it's liberating and exciting, because 3 weeks ago, the same was still true. I didn't know where I would be 2 months from then, but I didn't know that I didn't know. So the reality wasn't different. I just didn't think about it, so I didn't freak out. And what always happens in my experience is that when stuff gets cleared away, something new comes in. You don't just get smacked down for no reason. Something is trying to come in. And if you're asking for real transformation, which I guess I was, real big transformation, then what often will happen is things will just get ripped away from you, because you're not allowed to decide. Because if it's real big transformation, then it won't occur to you to consciously create whatever it is that the universe wants from you, whatever it is that will also make you feel the best you can possibly feel. Because if you're working in alignment with your job as a little piece of this great big cycling clockwork thing that we're living in right now, then you will feel wonderful. Birds like to sing. That's part of their thing. They also like to fly. Cats like to do crazy stuff and hunt and attack in my case, fake mice. And dogs like to do what dogs do, which it usually generally tends to be very lovey type stuff for most dogs that I've met. Anyway, so hold tight. If you want to change something, make the intentions and wait for stuff to start to happen, and watch for synchronicities. That's a big thing. Synchronicities happen whether or not you notice them. But if you're not looking for them, you're probably not going to see them unless they're really big that they knock you over the head. And that's not necessarily the easiest way to shift. You know, sometimes it's easier to get something small. That was a thundering kitty. I don't know if you just heard it. Sometimes it won't happen unless you get knocked down and knocked out the way that I have. But I don't know that that's necessarily true for every single person. I think you should just go with what you're experiencing, and rather than looking at the big purpose of life for every single person, which is not the same, find your purpose, which is the place that you feel the best. And if you're not there yet, focus on the little bits where you do feel there, and then take that energy, take that feeling, and superimpose it over the rest of your life when you request shifts and say, this is how I would like to feel all the time. And just keep doing it and keep doing it. The times in my life when I've needed the biggest changes that felt the most far out, I would essentially say every night to the universe, well, I know that I'm where I am to learn something. And I will stay here, obviously, as long as I need to in order to learn this thing. Sometimes it's been in really uncomfortable, painful, harmful, traumatic situations. But if you open a door, open a window, I promise I will go through. You can't say that if you won't do it, because it won't work. So if you're saying, I'll go, and you won't, you have to really have conviction, or else either nothing will happen and you'll lose your string to be able to manifest for that particular thing, or it'll happen and it'll just knock you out and it'll be really uncomfortable. So if you're in a place you don't want to be, try that one. With me, it worked within a couple weeks, and my entire life shifted about a month after that. So these are not things I could have decided on my own. These are phone calls I get from people saying, hey, da-da-da-da-da, which is exactly answering what I needed to know, or the information or the events that needed to happen in order to shift things for me. So it does happen. Once it happens once, you know it happens. Before it happens the first time, it might be hard to believe it, so just try it and see if it'll work or not. Anyway, I hope you're all doing very well. Happy June. We just had the full moon, which is pretty intense. The summer is now on its way down, so enjoy it. We just peeked out at the solstice. And go in peace. I'll talk to you again very soon.